I come from Africa, somewhere in the equatorial region, and our times are constant the whole year. And then I moved to Europe a few years back, and I discovered that there's a time that we change our clock. It's called the saving daylight saving time. Hope I got that right because it's a new concept to me. But then, anyway, you're tuned to Now Tell Us, and today we are going to be having a guest who is a very great guest. And he's going to talk about a book that is written with that title. That is Daylight Saving Time and the Power of Growing Older is what it addresses. And we're going to find out more about it because David is going to join us here, who is a special guest today. David Berner is our special guest today to talk about his book. And I don't want to take one more minute, but before we go to meet David, I would ask you to please share this episode with all your friends. If you happen to join us as we are going on and you have a question, ask. If you have any comment to make, we really appreciate feedback. So we thank you in advance. Just give us any feedback that you may have. And now, why don't we go and find out about daylight saving time from David? Are you ready? Here we go. Hello, David.
Hi, Anthony. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's
Good too.
wonderful.
How are you?
I'm very good. It's a good day. I
Wonderful.
live
I mean,
outside Chicago,
where in the world are you?
just outside Chicago. The weather here is a little chilly today. We got bright sunny skies though, so it's a good thing. We don't get
Okay.
that in the Midwest this time of year all the time.
It's
And yeah,
springtime, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Springtime.
and where you are, I just introduced the show by telling people that I discovered that there are places that people change time. I didn't know that until I was in my tens of years.
Yeah, I found that that's a fascinating thing that I actually found out a little bit about when I was writing this book.
Mhm.
I just assumed that all around the world, somewhere, people had changed times like we do in the United States, and that's not true. I guess when you said you were in Africa, that's not what people did, right? No?
Yeah, at least where I come from, we had 12-hour days and 12-hour nights. And when I came to Europe and I was told that we can add 1 hour to the day, I
Seems
was
weird,
like,
isn't it?
how is
Yeah,
that possible?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think, the title of the book obviously is Daylight Saving Time, and it's sort of a metaphor to, getting as much out of your day as you can as you get older,
Mhm.
grasping and seizing the day, as they say. So it's kind of based on that. But I think the history of daylight saving time, if I'm not mistaken, had a lot to do with agriculture in the United States. They wanted to have more daylight for the farmers, and
Mhm.
that was kind of the whole idea behind it. And it just stuck, and it's still around. There's a lot of wrestling with the idea of getting rid of it in the United States now. But it's still there. We still use it. We still change times, and everybody gets confused for a few days, and then we're okay.
Then we come to a book that I came across known as Daylight Saving Time: The Power of Growing Older by David W. Banner.
Yes,
How
that's
did
it.
that come to be?
Well, it's interesting. We all grow older. I mean, there's no way around it, right? No matter how young we are, we're going to keep getting older. I mean, it's just the way it works.
Hmm.
And when I got to the age of 60 and then 65, I'm now 67. I I started, I think you start thinking a little bit about the time you have left, maybe a little more intensely, knowing that the time you have left is fewer years than the time you had on Earth. So I'm not going to live another 67 years, right? That would be, you'd be have me on again as a show, of a show if I were doing that.
Uh-huh.
But so I started thinking about what that meant and what it means when you start growing older and how you sort of assess your life and how you sort of grab onto what's left and what do you do with it and how do you assess it and how do you um, turn it into something that becomes sort of your fuel for the rest of your life. So the book is really about that. It's not a how to. It's not
Mm-hmm.
a that kind of thing. It's more about my journey as I began to grow older and really pay attention to it and what that meant. And I think it can be very, very relatable to anybody who is not only my age, but any age. You're 30 and you start thinking about it. I was talking to a gentleman the other day who's 48, and he resonated with the book very much so just because his father had recently died
Mm-hmm.
and he was going to hit that milestone of 50, and it became very much in his right there in front of him, that we all grow older, and with the time we have left, what are we going to do and how are we going to shape it and how are we going to turn it into something special? And it became very relevant to him, even though he was 20 years younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's very true, that we all do that at some point. When we're 25, we think we're immortal. And when we're 60, we start going, oh, wait a minute. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure how much time I really have left.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do with it? And this is my journey. This is my journey of sort of kind of figuring that out. So it's a personal narrative, but I think
Yeah.
it really resonates with a lot of people.
Okay. Can we maybe quickly rush through your 1 to 50 or 1 to 60? How was it growing up where you're born, and maybe
Sure.
what you did it with life, and before you came to this point where you realized, oh, I've done my life,
Yeah.
most of it. So what's
Well,
remaining?
I grew up in Pennsylvania. And a lot of people around the world may not know exactly where that is, but if you know about Philadelphia, and if you know about in the United States, Philadelphia, New York, probably about 12 hours drive away from New York City. And I lived in Pennsylvania. Grew up in a town, a steel town, a working man's town. Grew up in a working class family. Had a really great childhood. My parents were working class people, but they really believed in um, getting prepared for the future, and they were very supportive of me and my sister. But particularly, I felt their support for me, and I got involved with the typical things kids got involved with at certain ages. I played baseball. I got involved with theater at school. I played in a band. I did all those things, more leaning toward the artistic side of things. Went to school to be a teacher. Did not become a teacher right away. I did later. I started working in radio broadcasting. I did radio journalism for many, many years. Uh,
Mm,
I worked for the CBS radio network as a freelancer for a while. I did some stuff for National Public Radio for a while. And locally here in Chicago, I've been here for a number of years now, just outside Chicago where I live. My wife is a real estate agent. We live in a wonderful little cottage just outside the city. Have a dog, so I live a very kind of normal life. Um, but I got into writing books when I was in my 40s, and it came out of an experience teaching. I was asked to teach some in a troubled school district outside Chicago for a little while, and the experience was life changing.
mm,
And my I would come home from work and I would sit at the table and I would tell my kids the stories of these impoverished kids that I was teaching, and they were asked me if I was writing it down, and I said no, I not, and I felt a little embarrassed by that. And I started to write it down and it became a book, and that was my first book. Accidental Lessons was the name of the book, and then from there I just kept writing. I'd always written as a journalist, but this kind of long form writing was something new to me. So I was learning along the way, and I still learn. Every book that I read, I'm still learning. So
yeah, you never
when
stop.
I came, yeah, when
Uh,
I came to this book, I thought it was time to reflect a little bit, but also look forward at the same time. I didn't want it to be a book about the past. I wanted it to be a book about the present and and forward.
Mm,
And I think I accomplished that with daylight saving time. The whole idea of the name of the title is it's a metaphor for time. It's a metaphor for having that one extra hour, that one extra moment to sort
mm,
of rethink or to relive. Um, and I think there's power in that. There's power in knowing that you have only so much time, and power in seizing those moments. And that's how the book came to be. That's my journey in a nutshell. And now I teach a little bit on the side. I still do a little bit of radio broadcasting, but I'm writing all the time. And this book, Daylight Saving Time, I'm thrilled to have come out officially this summer. But it is pre-sale order right now. And if anybody knows anything about the industry of publishing, pre-orders are a great thing to support indie authors and indie publishers. If
mm.
you can pre-order Daylight Saving Time, you can go on Amazon right now and do that. It helps all of us because it shows interest in reading, interest in a book, and it supports everybody who is writing in the indie publishing world. Um, and my publisher is always telling me, do your best to get those pre-sales. And it's really, for me, I don't think about that part of it very much. I'm a writer at heart. I'm an artist at heart, and I'm writing, I'm writing, I'm writing. Um, and I want to write well, and I want to tell good stories, and that is where all my energy goes. But I do know that the reason why publishers are even accepting my books, my manuscript, is because they think somebody's going to buy it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the industry. That's just the world. Um, so,
How many
I would love
books? How
to
many
read the
books
book.
so far?
I've written 12 books, and I tend to be a relatively fast writer
Mm-hmm.
um, because I came from the broadcast world. And if you know anything about that, it's like, what have you done for me in the last 10 minutes, right? It's very
Yeah.
fast paced. So I've learned to write quickly. I tend to take my more time with the editing process. But so I've been lucky enough to have some, good nonfiction subjects, memoir, but also some fiction, some novels that have been accepted by publishers, and I'm thrilled to have those out there too. But yeah, I had a friend ask me the other day, when do you think enough is enough? And I said, I think I'll write until the lights go out.
Mm,
It's just part of my nature. It's just part of what I do.
mm.
So
That's
at it.
wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah,
So maybe we can get a glimpse of what we are going to find in the daylight saving time book.
sure.
Yeah, what should we expect inside there? I mean,
Well, I
you
think
gave
that
us a highlight.
yeah, I think one of the things about this book that might be just a little bit interesting from the very beginning is it's written um it's written almost like a diary
Mm,
in that it's written in first person and me. It's about me, but it's also written in present tense, as if it's going on right now. And I wanted to write it that way because I wanted the book to have sort of a very solid base in the here and now. Like I
mm,
didn't want it to be something about the past. I wanted it to be something about the present moving forward. So I wrote it in present tense for a reason. It starts out with a moment I had a few years ago that was kind of scary. I had a minor heart attack
mm,
while I was doing my radio work. Didn't know there was a heart attack. Luckily, it wasn't in any way, shape, or form the kind of heart attack that would have debilitated me. I
mm,
had no damage. I was strong enough to drive myself to the hospital,
mm-hmm,
but I didn't know what was going on. And then I realized it was a heart attack. And then, when you have those kind of health moments, you certainly kind of reassess where you are and what you're doing. And it's not that I was an unhealthy person. My father had a heart attack at the exact same age I did. So
oh,
there's some hereditary there. I'm sure some genes that worked into that story.
mm-hmm,
But that's how the book starts. It starts about, um, wow, what's happening here, and what does this mean, and what am I supposed to do with this? Um, how do I take this information and this new reality and turn it into something positive moving down with the rest of my years? And
mm,
that was kind of the impetus. to begin that story. But then after that, it's really about that period in the calendar month, in America at least, in other places in the world, but not in Africa,
Mm,
where we do change times, and it's based in that period on the calendar, where that happens,
mm,
um, and it was purposely done that way because I wanted to use that metaphor of having one more hour, you know.
1 hour.
Yeah,
Mm,
and that's what how the book moves through. It talks a lot about my what's going on that day, but it's based on a lot of reflection about what it means to grow older each day.
mm,
How the body reacts differently, how I'm, dreams I haven't met, things I want to still do.
mm,
There's a part of the book where I speak about uh, there was a bookstore in a little remote town in Scotland that was up for sale, and they were just asking for bids all over the
mhm,
world. And I think it was an Instagram post, to tell you the truth,
mhm,
when it started. And I said to my wife, "You want to go run a bookstore in Scotland?" She's like, "What?"
mm,
Um, and I almost put a bid in, and that story is in there. So it's sort of like, what haven't you done that you maybe want to try? So that's in there, and the travel that I wanted to do, the sort of spiritual, metaphysical uh, wonderfulness of New Mexico, that part of
mm,
America.
mhm,
I have a special affinity for it. I don't know where it comes from. I don't have anybody in my family who's from New Mexico or anywhere in the desert of the United States, but there's something very there's something that pulls me in about that part of the country. So
yeah,
that's in there. And that could be anybody. That could be anybody who loves the mountains or the rivers or the oceans. It doesn't have to be somebody who likes the desert or finds the desert somehow fascinating. Um, it's about finding that thing that you're fascinated by and sort of
mm,
wrapping your arms around it,
mm.
right? And
And
that's what I hope people get.
yeah, and at 67, and something that maybe we could find in this book or not, I don't know. Are there things that you regret, things that
Oh wow.
you've done, or things that you didn't do, and you sit during that time that you were writing the book, you just put them there with some deep reflection and maybe a deep
Sure.
regret. Yeah.
Yeah, regret is a difficult emotion. When I look back at it, I mean, I think that I reflect on some of those things in the book, and I think everybody does, and I think that's why it's a relatable. Daylight saving time is a relatable book,
Mm-hmm.
because we all do that. That's part of the human condition.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I really regret. There are things I wish I would have maybe done earlier or would have known more about earlier. I was the first person in my family to ever go to college,
Mm-hmm.
so there was no one there in my family that would say, "So when you go to college, do these things and try this and make sure you do that. And when you get out of college, here's what you're going to do." There was
Mm-hmm.
nobody to tell me that. I just had to figure it out. So when I look back at those years, I wonder if there are things I could have done differently or should have tried differently, or maybe started something earlier or dismissed something earlier. But I wouldn't necessarily call them regrets.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those people who believes that as you grow older, you are what you become by where you've been. So I wouldn't be in a place that I am now, which I feel pretty happy about, if I hadn't gone through all those other things, good, bad, and ugly, whatever they
Oh,
were.
oh.
Yeah. So, each of those things have shaped me. And uh, I don't know if I feel regretful for any of that, even though there were some things I maybe wish I wouldn't have done or been involved with, or maybe not got so deeply emotionally tied to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then I look back again and say, well, those things shaped who I am, so I'm okay with that.
Mm. That's
Um,
cool. It's good
yeah,
when you tell us that those things that the tough things, the challenges that we go through could be
yeah,
preparing us for a better future. And we could be appreciating what we are going through in the near future. If we look
right.
at, yeah, uh-huh,
Yeah, you hear the people say this a lot, and it's kind of become a cliche, but it's so true. It's like the past is gone, the future is the future. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
So you got to try to live for now as best you can because that's the only thing you have control over.
yeah. We call it the present. They say that's the gift.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
would say that too. That's a
yeah.
gift.
It's a gift, so use it wisely. Now, as you say, there was nobody to tell you how college was, prepare you for college, or
No.
many maybe other things. But you had a dad who was caring. You had parents who were caring. Is there is any of them still alive? Your parents?
No, my parents are both gone. Physically. But I see little glimpses of my dad and my mother in me and in the things I do all the time. I think the older I get, the more the more I'm like my father in a lot of ways. It's funny how that works. Um,
Yeah.
but my parents were very supportive. My dad was, his father was not the greatest father in the world, and he believed that um, he was not going to be that guy. He
Hmm.
was going to be somebody better, and he did the best he possibly could. And he was a very supportive father. So I was very lucky to have good parents.
Mm.
Very lucky. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. At at your age, there are many people who are making some big changes for the fact that maybe they've been in employment and there's come a time that they're told, okay, your time is gone. It's time to
Yeah.
retire. Now, it seems like for you, things are set. You already have things that are going that you don't want to, that you are not going to stop in the near future. How's that experience, and how do you see those people that had have to make those sudden changes, and what advice would
Yeah.
you give them?
That's a good uh, thought because in the book, in daylight saving time,
Mm-hmm.
I go through some of those little changes like that. I'm wrestling with them a little bit. We
Mm-hmm.
all face that to some extent, right? To some level, whether we're working part time, full time, whether we're whatever. Um, but especially in America, I think that especially men are defined by what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, one of the first questions in America when somebody meets somebody is, "Oh, nice to meet you, John. And what do you do for a living?"
Yeah.
That's like the very first question, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of weight about the kind of person you are and the kind of the way you live and everything. So when you have to make a shift from those things that you've been doing for many many years, it's almost like part of your identity is ripped away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it can be jarring for a lot of people. And as we grow older and we either change jobs or maybe we come to the point where and I don't like the word retired very much, but if where we're not working every day or full time or beholden to some bigger corporation, maybe when we get to that point, we almost have to reinvent ourselves in a way
Mm-hmm.
because we're not that salesman anymore. We're not that cog in the wheel for the corporation or whatever. So we have to kind of reinvent ourselves, and that's not easy for a lot of people. I know a lot of people who have lost their jobs or have been, their time is up for working full time, and they have a very difficult time moving on to the next thing because they have this. It has been so much a part of their identity.
Mm-hmm.
But in daylight saving time, in my book, I talk about that. I talk about that process and what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't have answers. It's not a book that's full of answers. It really is a book that presents a lot of questions, personal questions that I had, but I think also are extremely relatable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it's a book that I would recommend. Not only because I wrote it and I like it and I think people would like it too, but I think if you're in any place in your growing older process and you hit a place where something has to change,
Yeah.
you have to reinvent yourself to some extent. And actually, that's a great opportunity, as you mentioned before. That too is a kind of gift, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a gift.
You can say, well, what is it that really I love? What is it that I'm really passionate about? What really is the thing that I want to stamp on myself as my new identity? What is that thing?
mm,
and you have a chance. A lot of us do, not everybody does. I realize some people, with monetary problems, fiscal issues and things like that, economy, not everybody has that chance, but I do think that we can do it in little pieces, almost everybody.
mm,
um, and I think that's a really big part of growing older, is to kind of reinvent yourself along the way, to figure out what you want to be and who you are, and at the core of yourself who you are.
mm.
uh, I think that sometimes it takes growing older and getting older and going through all those years to kind of figure out who you are. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, it does.
um, yeah. So
Yeah,
I think that process is a gift in a lot of ways.
yeah. I've come across a few people your age. I could use my dad as an example when he was about your age and also growing older. And I think I can identify that already in the conversation. Uh, when it comes to talking about our transition,
Mhm.
and this is something that now you're addressing, that when you're talking about growing older, that's something that comes into consideration. How am I going to transition? Where am I going? Do you address that in the book, and how is it? Maybe you have a lot
Yeah.
of questions, but tell us.
Anthony, I think we're always transitioning.
Uh,
I think we're always adjusting to the moment, or to the time, or to the next challenge. We get married, we have kids. And I'm talking about a typical traditional kind of lifestyle. You have married, you get kids, you go to, they go to school, they go away. Maybe you get a divorce, maybe you start dating again, maybe you decide you are gonna, work out more. Maybe you decide you're going to take up a sport you never played before. Maybe you
mm,
decide you're going to start writing books.
yeah,
Um, so we're always transitioning. Uh, and I think it's another gift for us to transition. I went from radio broadcasting to teaching at the university level, a radio broadcasting again, back and forth, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I love the fact that I could do that. When I think that how it would have been difficult for me to have one profession for 60 years.
mm,
I don't know if that's me. Now that may be perfect for some people,
mm,
um, but they're transitioning in other ways. Maybe not through a vocation or a job, but they're transitioning in other ways. Maybe they changed, their spiritual life, or they decide to take up hiking, and they're going to now go to all the national parks in America and around the world and see the seven wonders of the world. Maybe that's your thing, but you maybe you didn't think about that when you were 20, but now you're 40 and you're thinking about it. So that's a transition.
yeah. And the statement that maybe I did not complete was he used to talk about transitioning from this world, something that
Yeah.
crossed your mind. Yeah. How
Mm.
how do you consider that day that it comes now, since you say that most of your life is gone, and you're looking, how do I get to that point where I leave this world? Does it come to mind? Is it shared in the book?
Yeah. Well, I think it is shared in a book, because I think we all think about it. It's
Hmm.
some, when we're younger, maybe not so much. But when we start to get older, we start thinking about, well, what are people going to remember about me?
Yeah.
Are people going to remember me at all? We're all just kind of blip in the universe in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
But it's, you try to leave behind. I think what everybody hopes they will do is try to leave behind some level of empathy and love and kindness, and those are the things that last.
Mm.
Um, and if you can maybe do that in through your transitions, add a little bit of that ingredient into your transitions, I think you could live forever in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
one of the ways that someone mentioned is by you becoming an author, leaving something that can outlive you hundreds of years. Because
yeah, yeah.
after you're gone, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, someone will come across your book and say, "Oh, this is a life that was being lived in the early 2000s. Uh,
Wow.
these are some lessons that I can draw from that life that was lived." So you're leaving something important on this planet as you're walking and as you're
I
now
I
writing the
really
book.
I really appreciate you saying that because I think for a lot of writers, especially, or artists of any kind,
Yeah.
painters, musicians, they want to create something that outlives them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and you do think about that. Um, but through the process, you probably shouldn't think about it that hard because you should be in the moment of doing it.
Mm.
Because if you think about, oh, I want to make something that's going to outlive me, well, then now you're not in the moment.
Yeah.
You're thinking years ahead. That's not an easy thing to do. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do at all. Um, but I think it's, if you can get yourself to think as much as you can about what's going on right now, what am I enjoying right now? It sounds like a cliche, but watch that sunset. Take your time and watch that sunset go all the way down.
Mm.
Um, those are great moments. Those are good things to remind you that you have no control or anything else but what's going on right now. And that's why daylight saving time is written in the present tense, because that's the purpose of it.
That's the
You
purpose. So live in the present, live today.
know?
We're talking and add 1 hour to your day. Just go get the book. Go get Daylight Saving Time: The Power of Growing Older by
I
David
appreciate that.
Berner. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah,
And
the pre-orders are there now, and they're very important to all of us. And I would love for you to just jump in there and do that. I think you'll love the book. I really do. I know you have, Anthony, and I know others will. I really believe that, and I'm not just trying to be an author that's pushing a book. I really believe that this is a subject we can all relate to.
yeah, and also maybe someone would like to connect with you for one reason or the other. How could they do that?
It's I'm easy to find on the internet, so you just Google my name, David W. Berner, and you'll find it. But I have my website, davidwberner.com. There's a contact page there. Real easy to find me. If you Google my name on Amazon, you'll see my books. You'll see this book. You'll see Daylight Saving Time. Please reach out. I have a monthly newsletter that I send out. I try not to bombard people with newsletters, but it's about writing and life and books to read, books I'm reading. I pass along books that others are reading. It's kind of a community of readers. So yeah, please reach out. You can find me on Instagram, just on Facebook, David W. Berner writer, or David W. Berner writes. You won't have any problem finding me.
Okay, wonderful. So go follow up with David, and yeah, add another 1 day to you, or 1 hour, or 1 day, or 1 month to your life
Yeah.
through getting some wealth of information and inspiration from him. Wow, wow. Thank you, David, for coming to our show, and thank you for everything that you shared with us here.
Anthony, you were a delight. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and especially the book that you've shared with us. For everybody who's watching or listening, you're going to find links that now we want to make it easy for you. Find the links in the description. If you want to go to the website, just click there. If you want to go and get the book, it's in the description. Go and pre order the book. It's helpful to the authors. Be a help to David. So, how many giants have you slayed as we are just about to leave?
How many? What have I slayed?
Giants, giants,
Giants on
giants.
my slate. Wow. I don't know. You have to ask my wife about that because she's asking me to slay a giant almost every day.
Uh-huh.
Um, uh, I don't know how many giants I've slayed. That your giants can also be good. They can challenge you and make you a better person. So I don't know if I want to slay all of my giants, but I've slayed a few. So I've been able to keep going through this life to kill a few giant people. So I'm happy about that.
Tell us a few words that we should never forget.
True. Um, don't forget to live in the present. I mean, that's to me that's the first ingredient of the power of growing older is not to live in the future, not to live in the past. Hey, yeah, go to your high school reunion if you want to, but don't live back there. Come back to the present and find your passions and your love and your true heart and soul in the time that you have right now. That's the best piece of advice I can give anybody.
Thank you very much. The time is right now. Live at the present. Wow, that's it for today. To everyone who's been listening or watching, this is Now Tell Us, and I have been your host, Anthony Morore. Together, we have had a very wonderful guest with us, David W. Berner, and we are saying until next time, yeah, just go and add the 1 hour. Bye for now. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.